Everyone in the auction house wondered why billionaire Robert Maxwell paid a fortune for a simple handmade necklace. The answer lay hidden in the biggest mistake he had made 12 years ago and the mark that the woman who created that necklace had left on his life. Tonight, everything would change. In a room filled with millionaires bidding on priceless art, one man was about to pay $2 million for a $20 piece of jewelry. The other bidders thought he had lost his mind. But Robert Maxwell knew something they didn't. Sometimes the most valuable things in life can't be measured by their market price. Before we continue with this incredible story, could you please write in the comments which city you're watching from? We share new heart-healing stories every day. Now let's get back to this amazing tale. Robert Maxwell stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan office, 43 floors above the city that had made him one of the world's wealthiest men. At 35, he controlled Maxwell Industries, a conglomerate spanning real estate, technology, and luxury goods that generated billions in annual revenue. His personal net worth exceeded that of small countries, and his influence reached into every corner of global commerce. The office around him was a temple to success and power. Original Picassos and Monet hung on custom-designed walls, while a collection of rare artifacts from around the world occupied custom display cases. His desk, carved from a single piece of Brazilian rosewood, had hosted meetings with presidents, prime ministers, and captains of industry. Everything in Robert's environment spoke of achievement, ambition, and the kind of wealth that most people could only imagine. But despite all his material success, Robert carried an emptiness that no amount of money could fill. His penthouse apartment, spanning the top floor of a prestigious Fifth Avenue building, felt more like a museum than a home. He dined alone at tables set for 12, slept in master suites designed for couples, and stood on terraces meant for entertaining while gazing out at a city full of people who seemed more connected to life than he was. Robert's romantic life consisted of carefully arranged relationships with accomplished women who looked perfect in photographs but shared little genuine intimacy with him. These connections followed predictable patterns: initial attraction based on mutual benefit, followed by increasing distance as both parties realized they were performing roles rather than sharing authentic emotions. Robert understood that most of these women were drawn to his wealth and status rather than his personality, just as he often chose partners based on how they enhanced his public image rather than how they made him feel. The irony wasn't lost on Robert that he had built an empire designed to give him everything he wanted while somehow losing access to the things that mattered most. His success had created a barrier between him and authentic human connection, surrounding him with people who treated him as Robert Maxwell, the billionaire, rather than Robert the person. Late at night, when the city grew quiet and his enormous apartment echoed with solitude, Robert often found himself thinking about Elena Rodriguez, the woman he had loved and lost 12 years ago. She represented everything he had sacrificed in pursuit of success: genuine connection, unconditional love, and the kind of happiness that couldn't be purchased or negotiated. Elena Rodriguez had been Robert's first and most profound love, a relationship that had shaped his understanding of intimacy, partnership, and loss. They met during their senior year at Columbia University, two ambitious students from vastly different backgrounds who discovered they shared the same dreams about making a meaningful impact on the world. Elena was an art student specializing in jewelry design, driven by her belief that beautiful objects could carry emotional significance and connect people across cultures and generations. She came from a working-class family in Queens. Her father worked as a mechanic, her mother as a seamstress, but her talent and vision transcended her modest circumstances. Elena's jewelry pieces were intricate works of art that told stories, captured memories, and celebrated the human connections that gave life meaning. Robert was studying business and economics, already showing the strategic intelligence and ruthless ambition that would eventually make him wealthy. But Elena saw past his driven exterior to the passionate, caring person underneath. She encouraged his dreams of building a business empire while challenging him to remember that success without purpose was just accumulation. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, intellectual compatibility, and a deep emotional bond that neither had experienced before. They spent hours talking about their futures, their fears, and their shared vision of success that included both professional achievement and personal fulfillment. Elena believed that Robert's business acumen combined with her artistic vision could create something beautiful and meaningful together. For 18 months, Robert and Elena were inseparable. They studied together in the library, explored New York's museums and galleries, and spent quiet evenings in Elena's small apartment, where she worked on her jewelry designs while Robert reviewed business plans and market analyses. Robert loved watching Elena create, the way her hands moved with practiced precision, the concentration in her eyes, and the joy she felt when a piece came together exactly as she had envisioned. Elena made Robert a necklace during their relationship, a delicate silver piece featuring intertwined hearts with tiny gemstones that caught the light like captured stars. She spent weeks perfecting the design, wanting to create something that would represent their connection and remind Robert of their love even when they were apart. The necklace was simple in appearance but complex in its craftsmanship, requiring techniques Elena had learned from her grandmother, who had been a jeweler in Mexico before immigrating to the United States. When Elena gave Robert the necklace, she explained that she had designed it to be worn close to the heart, where love resided. She told him that as long as he wore it, a part of her would always be with him, no matter where his ambitions took him. Robert treasured the gift, wearing it every day and finding comfort in its weight against his chest during stressful moments. During the spring of their senior year, Robert received an offer that would define the trajectory of his entire life. Goldman Sachs had been following his academic performance and extracurricular achievements, and they extended an invitation to join their elite training program immediately after graduation. The position came with a substantial starting salary, access to the highest levels of global finance, and a clear path to the kind of wealth and power that Robert had always dreamed of achieving. But the opportunity came with demands that would fundamentally change Robert's life. The training program required complete dedication, 18-hour days, frequent travel, and total focus on professional development. Personal relationships that couldn't adapt to this intensive schedule were actively discouraged, as the firm wanted employees whose loyalty was undivided. Elena tried to be supportive when Robert shared the opportunity with her. She encouraged him to pursue his dreams, insisting that their love was strong enough to survive the temporary challenges of a demanding career launch. Elena had her own plans after graduation. She intended to start her own jewelry design business, focusing on custom pieces that celebrated important moments in people's lives. But Robert could see the practical obstacles that Elena's optimism overlooked. His new career would consume every aspect of his life for years to come. The social events, networking opportunities, and professional development activities that were essential to advancement in investment banking would leave no time for maintaining a relationship with someone outside that world. More troubling was Robert's growing awareness that Elena's artistic career path wouldn't provide the lifestyle he was beginning to envision for himself. His new colleagues socialized with people who measured success in terms of net worth and market influence. Elena's values and priorities, which Robert had once found refreshing, began to seem naive and potentially limiting. The night before Robert was scheduled to give Goldman Sachs his final answer, he and Elena sat in her apartment while she worked on a new jewelry collection. Elena was excited about her post-graduation plans, describing the workshop space she hoped to rent and the clients she wanted to serve. She spoke about using her art to celebrate love, commemorate milestones, and help people express emotions that words couldn't capture. Robert watched Elena's hands as she shaped silver wire into delicate patterns, the same hands that had created the necklace he wore every day. He realized that accepting the Goldman Sachs position would mean choosing a path that led away from everything Elena represented: creativity, authenticity, and the belief that success should serve purposes larger than personal ambition. When Robert finally told Elena he was accepting the Goldman Sachs position, he tried to frame his decision in terms of building a foundation for their future together. He explained that a few years of intense focus on his career would provide the financial security they would need to support Elena's artistic pursuits and eventually start a family. But Elena saw through Robert's rationalization to the truth underneath. She understood that he was choosing a lifestyle that would fundamentally change who he was, transforming him from the passionate, idealistic person she loved into someone driven primarily by wealth and status. Her disappointment wasn't about the career opportunity itself, but about Robert's willingness to abandon their shared values in pursuit of material success. The conversation that ended their relationship was quiet and devastating. Elena didn't argue or make demands. Instead, she simply asked Robert to be honest about what he really wanted. When he couldn't give her an answer that included their relationship as a genuine priority, Elena knew that their love story was over. Before Robert left Elena's apartment for the last time, she asked him to return the necklace she had made for him. The request felt like a physical blow. The necklace had become Robert's most treasured possession, a tangible connection to the person he loved most. But Elena explained that she couldn't bear the thought of him wearing something she had created with love while pursuing a life that excluded her. Robert removed the necklace with hands that shook slightly, placing it gently in Elena's palm. For a moment, they both stared at the delicate silver piece that had symbolized their connection. Then Elena closed her fingers around it and walked Robert to the door, where they said goodbye with the formal politeness of strangers rather than the intimacy of lovers. Over the following 12 years, Robert built Maxwell Industries into a global powerhouse, while Elena disappeared from his life completely. Robert's success exceeded every prediction his Goldman Sachs mentors had made. He accumulated wealth, influence, and recognition that placed him among the most powerful people in the world. But the necklace Elena had reclaimed remained a symbol of what he had sacrificed to achieve that success. Robert occasionally wondered what had become of Elena, but pride and practicality prevented him from seeking information about her life. He told himself that she had probably found someone who could appreciate her artistic vision and gentle spirit in ways he hadn't been mature enough to understand. The thought of Elena's happiness with another man was both comforting and heartbreaking. He wanted her to be fulfilled, but he couldn't escape the selfish wish that she might still think of him occasionally. The charity auction at the Metropolitan Museum was an annual event that attracted New York's wealthiest philanthropists and art collectors. Robert attended these gatherings more out of social obligation than genuine interest, bidding on pieces that would enhance his collection while supporting causes that provided tax benefits and positive publicity for Maxwell Industries. This year's auction featured an eclectic mix of donated items, paintings by emerging artists, vintage wines from private sellers, and jewelry pieces from estate collections. Robert was studying the catalog while waiting for the bidding to begin, when his eyes fell on lot number 47, a simple silver necklace described as handcrafted contemporary jewelry featuring intertwined heart motifs with semi-precious stone accents. The photograph accompanying the catalog description was small and poorly lit, but Robert recognized the piece immediately. It was Elena's necklace, the one she had made for him, the one she had reclaimed 12 years ago when their relationship ended. The intricate silver work, the specific arrangement of gemstones, and the distinctive heart design were unmistakable. Elena's artistic signature was evident in every detail. Robert's hands trembled as he stared at the catalog page. How had Elena's necklace ended up in a charity auction? Had she sold it years ago? Or had circumstances forced her to donate something that had once held deep personal meaning? The catalog provided no information about the item's provenance, listing it simply as a donation from an anonymous contributor. The estimated value listed in the catalog was $20 to $30, reflecting the auction house's assessment of the necklace as costume jewelry rather than fine art. But to Robert, the piece was priceless. It represented everything he had lost, everything he regretted, and everything he still loved about the woman who had created it. As the auction progressed through paintings, sculptures, and vintage collectibles, Robert barely paid attention to the proceedings. His entire focus was on Lot 47 and the questions its presence raised about Elena's current circumstances. If she had donated the necklace to charity, it might suggest financial difficulties or a desire to finally release the past. If someone else had donated it on her behalf, the implications were even more troubling. When the auctioneer finally reached Lot 47, Robert felt his heart racing with anticipation and anxiety. The piece looked even more beautiful, under the auction house's professional lighting, its silver surfaces catching the light, and its gemstones sparkling with the same brilliance Robert remembered from years past. The auctioneer began the bidding at $15, expecting minimal interest in what appeared to be a modest piece of contemporary jewelry. A few casual collectors raised their paddles half-heartedly, treating the necklace as a minor item to be disposed of quickly before moving on to more significant lots. But when Robert raised his paddle and bid $500, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. Conversation stopped. Heads turned, and experienced auction-goers tried to understand why one of the world's wealthiest men was showing serious interest in an inexpensive piece of costume jewelry. The other bidders, intrigued by Robert's unexpected participation, began to increase their own bids. What had started as a routine disposal of donated items suddenly became a competitive bidding war, with participants driven more by curiosity about Robert's motives than genuine interest in the necklace itself. As the bidding escalated past $1,000, then $5,000, then $10,000, Robert remained calm and determined. Each time another bidder raised their paddle, Robert immediately countered with a higher bid. He wasn't negotiating or strategizing. He was simply ensuring that no one else could claim the one physical connection he had to Elena. The other auction participants watched in fascination as the bidding continued to climb. Some whispered among themselves, trying to identify what made this particular necklace worth such extraordinary sums. Others pulled out their phones to research whether they had missed some crucial detail about the piece's artistic or historical significance. At $50,000, most of the casual bidders dropped out, leaving only Robert and two serious collectors who were determined to understand what they were competing for. At $100,000, one of the remaining bidders withdrew, shaking his head in confusion. The final competitor, a woman known for her collection of contemporary jewelry, continued bidding until the price reached $200,000. When Robert calmly raised his paddle to bid $2 million, the auction house fell completely silent. The sum was so far beyond any reasonable valuation for the necklace that even experienced auction professionals were stunned. The auctioneer paused, looking around the room to confirm that Robert's bid was serious, then asked if there were any other offers. The silence stretched for long moments before the auctioneer's gavel fell with a decisive bang. Sold to bidder number 12 for $2 million. The room erupted in surprised conversations as people tried to process what they had witnessed. After completing the purchase paperwork and arranging for the necklace to be delivered to his office, Robert left the auction house feeling both triumphant and emotionally drained. He had reclaimed something precious, but the questions surrounding Elena's donation of the piece continued to trouble him. Back in his penthouse apartment, Robert found himself unable to concentrate on anything other than the necklace and what it might reveal about Elena's current life. The next morning, he instructed his personal assistant to hire a private investigator to locate Elena Rodriguez and determine her current circumstances. The investigator's report arrived 3 days later, along with recent photographs that made Robert's chest tighten with familiar emotions. Elena was living in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, working as a jewelry designer for a small artisan collective that specialized in handmade pieces for middle-class customers. She had never married, had no children, and according to the investigator's observations, lived quietly and devoted most of her time to her craft. The report revealed that Elena had donated the necklace to the charity auction 6 months earlier, during a particularly difficult financial period when her workshop space was threatened with closure due to rising rents. She had parted with several pieces from her personal collection to raise money for the artisan collective, ensuring that her colleagues could continue their work even if she couldn't afford to maintain her own studio. Reading about Elena's financial struggles while sitting in his luxury apartment filled Robert with shame and regret. The woman he had loved was sacrificing her most precious possessions to support her artistic community, while he accumulated wealth he couldn't possibly spend in several lifetimes. The necklace she had created as a symbol of their love had become a desperate measure to preserve her life's work. Robert spent hours staring at the necklace, which now sat in a place of honor on his desk. Elena's fingerprints were still metaphorically present in every curve and detail, reminding him of the woman who had seen his potential for greatness while believing that true success meant more than material accumulation. For the first time in 12 years, Robert allowed himself to consider the possibility of reaching out to Elena, not to apologize for choices that couldn't be changed, but to discover whether the woman who had once loved him might be willing to accept support from someone who had never stopped loving her. The necklace had found its way back to him through circumstances neither of them had orchestrated. Perhaps that was the universe offering them a second chance to discover whether love could survive the test of time, separation, and the lessons that both suffering and success had taught them. As Robert held the necklace up to the light streaming through his windows, watching the gemstones catch fire like captured stars, he made a decision that the 23-year-old version of himself hadn't been brave enough to make. Tomorrow he would find Elena Rodriguez and discover whether some connections were strong enough to bridge the gap between regret and redemption. Can love find its way back through the most unexpected paths? Sometimes the things we lose find their way home when we're finally ready to receive them. Tomorrow, we'll share another story that proves the heart never forgets its truest connections. Let us know in the comments what you think Robert should say when he sees Elena again. The most precious things in life can't be bought, but they can be earned through courage and genuine change.